Welcome to the show. I'm Kim Parley. Hardly a day goes by these days without hearing something on the news about organizations, big or small, being hacked, whether it's into Hillary Clinton's emails or the newly elected French president files or big companies and organizations. Our next guest says people have no idea how much data is being collected about them, and the cyber risks should not be downplayed. Marc Goodman is the author of a best-selling book called Future Crimes, and he's a global security strategist who's worked with the FBI, Interpol, and the United Nations, just to name a few. I started off by asking him if he was hoping this book would scare people silly about the risks of cybersecurity, and this is what he had to say.
No, absolutely not. My intent was not to scare people. My intent was to inform and educate. But using a little bit of fear, and particularly when it's based in fact, is a fine way to grab people's attention. Ultimately, the goal was to let people know about all the new and different emerging risks out there so that they can prepare for them. My goal is not fear, it's empowerment.
Let me ask you, you start off the book with a story of a guy named Matt Honan, and can you tell us a bit about that story? Because it strikes me as this could just happen to anybody's story, and it was disconcerting to say the least.
Yeah, Matt Honan is the everyman, and that's in fact why I started off Future Crimes with his story. Matt was a reporter for Wired magazine, and one day he saw his whole digital life turned upside down. He was playing with his 2-year-old daughter, and all of a sudden he noticed his iPhone rebooted, which was kind of weird. And then he thought it would just turn back on, but it didn't. Instead, he saw the little white Apple logo. He's like, wow, that's weird. So then he went to his iPad, figuring he could get that to work, and that also had been wiped. And then he went to his computer, and that had been wiped. And then he tried to use somebody else's computer to log into his Twitter account, and that had been wiped. And his Gmail account had been wiped. 10 years of his Gmail was completely destroyed. And also all of his photos that he had saved online in the cloud completely deleted. And that included pictures of relatives of his who had since died, and every picture of his infant daughter from age 0 to 2 completely deleted. And what caused all of this, you might be asking? Turns out there was a hacker who decided that he wanted to steal Matt's Twitter handle. And so he just went into his digital life, used some social engineering, a couple little hacks, and with that was able to take over and destroy Matt Honan's digital life. And in fact, he was incredibly educated about the risk. He was a reporter at Wired magazine. If anybody should have been prepared, it was him. But unfortunately, Matt didn't take some of the basic steps to protect himself. And so we tell that story because there is quite a bit that you can do to protect yourself online. I
want to talk about some of those steps to protect yourself in just a second, but the other thing I found disturbing about that story, and you highlight in the book as well, is that the hacker who did this, and I quote, it's from the book series, "I honestly didn't have any heat towards you. I just liked your Twitter username." This was random.
Yep. He did it for the lulz, which is what hackers use to describe the laughs, just for the laughs, because he could. And that's kind of the challenge that we're in today, is that people who understand and use technology better than you have an advantage over you. And we've seen criminals, terrorists, governments, companies are all willing to take advantage of those who are less technologically sophisticated.
What you also highlight in the book, I think, which is upsetting, I think, is that I think we probably have, from years past, the idea this hacker is, 15, 14-year-old, sitting in the basement doing their thing. But that's not the case anymore. These are criminal infrastructures, so to speak, that are actually out there trying to get the access to all this data.
Yeah, absolutely. These are international criminal syndicates. International criminal syndicates. They are organized to great extent. Sure, there are some lone hackers out there, but some of the largest companies employ hundreds and hundreds of people. There was a famous case out of Ukraine where a company was doing $500 million a year in cybercrime. They had a team of over 600 people working for them around the clock. We've just seen some operations in India taken down where some criminals have used the Indian call centers to do outbound crime fraud, particularly around IRS fraud here in the States, where people get their tax refund. So you can take these massive workforces and turn them to criminal purposes. And they're incredibly sophisticated. The one in the Ukraine that I was just talking about actually had employee benefits, right? They had free lunches for their employees. They had competitions to see who could come up with the greatest fraud and steal the most money. And if you won that, you would get a suitcase with 50,000 euros in it, or you could even win a Ferrari. So in a lot of ways, these companies look like Silicon Valley startups, right? They kind of have the same ethos in many respects of some of those companies, except they're just doing it for criminal purposes. So they're highly organized.
You know, it's you know, as you go through the book, it's a bit dizzying because I think about myself, just as an example. I mean, you know, I have an iPhone. I have, you know, a Mac at home. I have, you know, a Facebook account, a LinkedIn account, a Twitter account. You know, I buy things online. You know, my house is probably somewhat connected in some way. There's all these things that are out there, and I mean, they're all vulnerabilities that, you know, people can access data. Let me just ask you about Facebook first of all. I mean, you know, how concerning is it that people kind of put themselves out there because you're putting all your information out there for everyone to see?
Right. So you're right. We're adding more and more devices into our lives. We all have more and more accounts. The average person in the States has 26 online accounts. Some are social media, some are banking, some are healthcare, and all of that data is out there. And we're certainly increasing the number of devices in our home. So it's not just the fact that we have a computer and a laptop and a Game Boy and an Xbox and an iPhone and an iPad and an Android, and some of our refrigerators and televisions are connected online. More and more people are getting Amazon Echoes or Dots into their houses. So there is no end to this, right? It's the invasion of technology into our lives. And people do this because it's meant to bring tremendous benefit. For some people, that's true. But it also brings with it a great number of risks. And you talked about Facebook as an example. The people don't understand the bargain that they have with Facebook. People think that they are customers of Facebook, but the reality of the situation is that you're not Facebook's customer. You are Facebook's product. You are the thing that Facebook sells to its real customers who happen to be advertisers. So you tell Facebook your name and your gender and your date of birth and your religion and where you were born and what high school you went to and who your mother is and who your cousin is and where you work and what type of cat videos you like. And Facebook scoops up all of that data and sells it. So you get free status updates and Facebook has, you know, a $50 billion valuation. That is the trade. So all of that data that you're giving away for free, other people are able to market. And if you're okay with that bargain, if you understand it, then that's fine. But I think the wide majority of people don't understand the extent to which they're giving away their data.
We're talking about cybersecurity and how secure we are out in the digital universe. So we're going to continue our conversation with Marc Goodman, author of Future Crimes. I asked him about the role of artificial intelligence in cybercrimes.
Well, my book was called Future Crimes because what I wanted to do is not just look at the threats of today, but look at where we're going. And things like biometrics, facial recognition, artificial intelligence, robotics, all of these things can be used for tremendous good, but of course there's a downside as well. So you asked about artificial intelligence. So that is something that certainly could be used for very good purposes. You know, a simple case of artificial intelligence is narrow artificial intelligence. So when you buy something on Amazon, Amazon is able to suggest to you another product, or you rent a video or watch a video on Netflix, and Netflix says, hey, if you like this movie, you might like that movie. And that's great, and that's convenient. But of course, you can take these tools to extreme, and we've even seen criminals use forms of artificial intelligence. So crimes that used to be committed by human beings, those criminals have now gotten together and encoded those crimes into computer code so that they run at scale with repeatable processes. And all of that is carried out through narrow forms of artificial intelligence.
Well, sorry,
so criminals can use these tools as well.
Marc, can you explain that a little bit? Sorry, what do you mean by that they've encoded? Like, give me an example of how that might work.
Sure. Well, if you've received a phishing email, right, the people that send out those phishing emails, the process that the phishing email takes from how it is written, from landing in your inbox to what happens when you click on it, what malware is downloaded on your machine, what happens if you are unfortunate enough to end in your credit card details, that entire crime, all of those 20 different steps that used to be carried out by individual criminals in a criminal chain or in an organization, organized crime group, all of those have now been scripted, and you just write a computer program and the code carries out the crime. So that's why we've seen such a massive increase in crime today. The human being is disappearing into the background, and the code is carrying out the crime. And of course, the code can scale, and it scales exponentially. So just like any business viewer that you have that might be listening to this broadcast, they're trying to find efficiencies in their supply chain, in their operations, and in how they do their work. And we've seen tremendous advantages in businesses doing those things, right? In the old days, if you wanted to buy a plane ticket, you would have to call a travel agent. Now everybody can go online and do it themselves. You can check yourself in at the airport by yourself. You can weigh your suitcase by yourself. All of those processes have saved the airlines a ton of money and increased their profits. Criminals have automated all of their processes using coding, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and the like to achieve scale and greater efficiency and profitability.
How often are we hacked? Like, are we even aware of all the times we've been hacked? And how many times would you say companies are attempted to be hacked?
You know, the former NSA director famously said that China had hacked every one of the Fortune 500 companies in America. There have been other studies that show from the time you take your computer home and turn it on, it's about 120 seconds until the first piece of malware lands on your machine if it's not defended. There's another statistic to your question about awareness. The average time to detection for a data breach in a Fortune 500 company today is 211 days. So in the old days, if somebody broke into your system and hacked you, you would see something funny on your screen or your computer would stop working. Today, the criminals have a completely different approach. They're looking for stealth. They want to hide in your network and watch everything that you do. And that means with a 211-day time to detection, they're in your system for the average company for 7 months before you even notice it. So there's only two types of companies out there: those that have been hacked and know about it, and those who have been hacked and don't know about it. But the common denominator is they've all been hacked.
Wow. Okay, so you have worked with the FBI and Interpol. What are people doing about it? What can I do about it? How do you protect ourselves?
Well, obviously you can get my book, which is fantastic according to my mom. But joking aside, there are actually tremendous steps that individuals and businesses can take to protect themselves. On my website, futurecrimes.com, if you go there, there's a little infographic. Just click on tips and you can download the infographic. And I've created something called the Update Protocol, and it's 6 steps to keep you safe. And it's based upon research that was conducted by the Ministry of Defense in Australia. They studied hundreds of thousands of cyber attacks, and they broke them down into 6 categories. And the Department of Defense said if you just control for these 6 things, you can reduce your cyber risk by 85%. So the goal is not perfection. There is no such thing as perfection, right? The FBI has been hacked, the CIA has been hacked, the Canadian government, the French government, they've all been hacked, and they have pretty good people working for them. So you can't stop all hacks, but an 85% reduction would be awesome. We'd all love to make 85% more money, or some people might want to lose 85% of their weight. Those all things would be great, and you can do this with cyber. And it comes down to simple steps around updating your software, managing your passwords, turning off Wi-Fi when you're not using your computer, and other such tools in particular. And they can have a massive, massive difference. And all of that is explained in that infographic.
Marc Goodman, author of Future Crimes.